segment, you guys, I've got the one and only Dia Miller on. She is obviously the episode 17 guest. So we are going to get into the 10 secret segment questions so you guys can get to know her just a little bit better. So Dia, without further ado, here we go. We'll start it off easy. What is your favorite color?
My favorite color is turquoise.
Ooh,
So really? I was just going to say, I feel so high maintenance saying turquoise over like yellow or like blue, but it's a different color.
So fun fact actually about that question is from Nitz Blovstein was the first person that I did secret segment with. For like the first 8 secret segments, every single guest said blue. I'm like, somebody needs to say something different.
Really?
So
blue?
I accept turquoise as long as it's not blue.
It is not blue.
I was like, I have to take this question out. Like every person is gonna say blue.
I find that interesting because I feel like blues might be my least favorite color. Like that's such an interesting of all the colors that everybody would pick. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like one of those weird psychological things where like when you're asked that question, that's like the thing that comes off the top of your head. Yeah. But I don't know. It was weird. So thank you for saying turquoise.
I do what I can.
Okay, this next one gets a little tough for people, surprisingly. But if you had to pick one candy to eat forever, what would it be?
Oh, why is that so hard? Gummy worms.
Ooh, okay.
Gummy worms. Okay. I'm not a big chocolate person. Like I cannot eat just solid chocolate. It has to be mixed in something or whatever. I don't really like nuts. I don't really like who wants nuts in their candy? Like that's like just saying that's weird. So yeah, but I like gummy, chewy things. This is getting very descriptive. I like gummy worms.
Okay, question 2B then. Sour or regular gummy worms?
Regular, but I feel like I'm a gummy worm connoisseur because I'm so picky about them. Like I will squeeze the bag to feel like because some of them are like, you can't chew through them. Like it hurts to eat
they're
them.
super hard.
Yeah. And so I want them to be like, there's a specific gas station kind of gummy worms that are like the easiest to eat and they're amazing. And so anytime I find them, I like stock up because I'm like, yes, I don't want to have to just go to the gas station in the middle of the night to get gummy worms.
Totally. Okay. Taking notes. Dia, gummy worm connoisseur.
Yeah. If you ever have gummy worm questions, I am your girl.
Add that to the resume.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay. Question number 3. This can be at any point in life or related to anything. What is the best vacation you've ever been on?
Oh man. I think I would have to say I actually grew up in Oregon, but I live in Southern California now. But when I was 15, I was still living in Oregon. My family didn't have a lot of money growing up. Right. Our vacations were driving from Ashland, which is like Southern Oregon, to Portland to visit my grandparents. Like that was vacation. Right. And when I was 15, and I'm also an only child. So vacation was me and my parents. So when I was 15, my parents surprised me and said we were going to Disneyland and my cousins were coming. And so it was like me and my parents and my aunt and uncle and my 4 cousins who I'm super close to. And we road trips. Like we were stopping at random trees that looked cool on the side of the road. Like it was, and for someone who had like never been on an actual vacation like that, it was the coolest thing. And then we were at Disneyland and we went to SeaWorld and we went to like Mission Bay. Like we went to all these places that now are very familiar to me, but we were living here. And so it was really fun being with my cousins. And to this day, that was a lifetime ago. And I still feel like so many of my childhood memories are wrapped up in that vacation.
That's so cool. Yeah, I feel like also being an Oregon kid and also being an only child, I do have 2 step siblings, but they were both 6 and 8 years older than me.
Yeah.
And so definitely like the going on vacation with my parents thing is so relatable. But I feel like as an Oregon kid, when you're little like that and you go to California.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it's like this big glamorous thing and you feel so cool and I got to go to Disneyland.
Yeah. I bought an In-N-Out t-shirt. Like we made an entire trip to go to In-N-Out. Like I stood next to the In-N-Out sign and my mom took a picture of me.
Of
and
course.
Now I'm like, we have In-N-Out everywhere. Like I eat it regularly. It's such like, it's so funny to me, the things that at the time were like, oh my gosh, and now are just part of life. It's wild. But that was a fun trip. That was a really fun trip.
I think the craziest part about what you just said is that there's now 3 In-N-Outs in Oregon. There's one in Medford, one in Grants Pass, and one in Kaiser, of all places.
Moving on up.
Yeah. So even, like, to your point, even the In-N-Out California experience is, like, a little less grandeur
Right.
now, because Oregon has some. Like, it's way more accessible to people in Oregon. But yeah, that's cool. I definitely live for Disneyland stories. I love Disney.
Same. Disney is a magical place.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Okay, so you touched on one of them a couple of questions ago, but name one food you absolutely will not eat under any circumstance.
Oh, sushi.
Oh, really?
I can't stomach it. And the truth of the matter is I've never actually tried it. But I eat a little bit.
You don't like the idea of it.
I don't like the idea. I eat a little bit like a child. Like I like things very plain. I like them very basic. And so the idea of like raw, and I like seafood.
Right.
Some seafood. But the idea of like a raw, I just can't, my brain can't get past that long enough to actually try it. So sushi is one of those foods that I'm like, I'm just gonna do without. Like I don't eat it.
That's fair. That's fair. I feel like sushi is one of those things that people either love it or they absolutely are like, nope, no, thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hilarious because I actually that's what I'm having for lunch today. I left sushi from yesterday.
You're right though. There's no in between. There's like no middle ground on sushi. It's a debate topic. Like that's the kind of thing that there's no middle ground. You can't just like be whatever about sushi.
Absolutely. I fully agree. I fully agree. Okay, so this one gets really exciting. Obviously, this is sports talk mostly. So everybody loves answering this question because it ties us to what we're currently doing. But what, if you can remember, was the first live sporting event that you ever attended?
I don't remember going to it, but I know what it was.
Okay.
When I was a baby, like before I was even a year old, I was at a Blazer game at it was when it was the not the Rose Garden,
the Portland Coliseum.
Yeah, that'll age me. So yeah, I was a baby and my mom said they ended up taking me into like a bar because they needed to get me out of this, like I wasn't holding still. And so they like were out with me walking around the arena. But yeah, I was in that stadium when I was tiny. My grandparents, when I was little, had season tickets. So that would be the first, I think the first memory of a game that I was also a Trailblazer game. I was little, but I wasn't, I don't remember obviously being a baby, but I remember being a little kid and being at a Blazer game.
Right. Yeah. Mine was, I was a baby. I don't think I've ever actually said this on the podcast, which is so weird.
Yeah, you got to share.
I was a baby when the Ducks were in the Rose Bowl in 1990, because I was born in June of 1990. And I was a baby when they went to that. And that was my first sporting event. But definitely agree with you. The first one that I remember was a Blazers game.
Yeah. So. It's kind of solidifies the fandom, I think, when you get in there at a young age and you really get to experience it. It's hard to not love it.
Oh, yeah. Like the memories from, and to me, you probably agree, but it will always be the Rose Garden. Like,
yeah.
I sometimes will say the Rose Garden at Moda Center just so that people who aren't from Portland know what I'm referring to. Right, but if you're a diehard Trailblazers fan, it is the Rose Garden. It's not. It's not.
It's so weird. It's so and it's ironic because I've never actually been to the Moda Center since it's been the Moda Center.
Same.
So it's like, it's just such a weird, like, I mean, I'm glad it's still like they added at the Rose Quarter, like keeping the Rose theme, but it's weird. It's too bad. I mean, I know it's a sponsorship, so I get it, but like, it's a bummer, when you grow up with something like that, that's just, and it's the Rose Garden, like, it's so cool. And so, and I don't know if that'll ever completely die. Maybe when our kids are like older and, those of us who grew up going to that have moved on. That sounds really morbid, but like,
I know.
maybe eventually, but for now it's the Rose Garden.
I think a lot of us though wish that even though Moda Center like took the branding of it, that they would have at least kept the homage to the Rose Garden or whatever. But maybe someday the pressure from the fans will get them to change it back or put an actual Rose Garden there. Do something to call it. Seriously. But, okay, so let's see. This was fifth question, I think. If you had to choose, now this one gets fun. If you had to choose one actor or actress to play you in a film about you,
This is good. Rachel McAdams.
Oh!
Yeah, this is actually something I've thought about because, I'm obviously going to have a movie made about my life one day.
Obviously.
I feel like this is a question that I've been asked before and like have put serious thought into. I don't really know what it is about her, but I've had people tell me over the years that I remind them of her, which is a weird thing because I don't look like her, and it's like you're not seeing who she actually is, you're seeing her play characters. Right. So I think that's I don't ever ask why. I maybe should, but I've had people over the years tell me that, and I just think like, okay, I could see it. That would work. Yeah. What about you? I'm curious. That's a good question.
Oh man. Okay, so I always get told that I look like a brunette version of Blake Lively.
Oh yeah, you do.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have thought that, but
it's definitely the mole under my eye for sure. She has a similar one. Hers is a little bit lower and a little bit more into her cheek, but she has a very similar beauty mark. So I get that a lot.
Yeah,
I feel like personality wise, I love Michelle Rodriguez.
Oh, she's great.
Absolutely love her. I'm very feisty like her, very tomboy, very, she plays a lot of those roles, but that is definitely who she is as a person.
Yeah.
She's part of the LGBTQ community, so she's very, very comfortable with herself and who she is. She can do like the girly glam makeup and ball gown thing, but she can also do the flannel and boxers thing too. I think that really, really aligns with me.
Yeah.
And I just love her personality. So that's probably one of those two is probably who I would go with.
It's interesting because I think you do get you get actors and actresses that end up playing characters that probably they identify with to some degree. Yeah. So I guess if you maybe that's what it is the characters, which I don't know how to take that, but it's
and I think with you, the Rachel McAdams thing, we're getting like into a think piece on this. I love it. I think with you, the Rachel McAdams thing comes from like the versatility in emotion. Like she can play like the bitchy mean girl, but she can also play like the sensitive emotional girl in love. And
that's solid. That's I tend to be very very emotional.
Me too.
It's a wild roller coaster.
I
said to someone the other day that how did I say it? That I was realistic with a flair of dramatic. And I feel like that is pretty accurate.
Amen.
Usually.
I love it. Okay, so this one is fun. It can be very, very serious or it can be very, very simple. What is one thing you've learned in the past week?
Oh man, in the past week. I feel like this is something that I learn regularly. It's not anything new, but I think just that reminder of like you can't judge someone by a small piece. Like there's so much to people that like it's so easy to get to know someone online or get to know somebody for their, persona or whatever, or even in real life, you get to know them just a little bit.
Right.
And it's really easy to like make judgments about who they are as a person from that little piece. And I think that's human nature. I think we just do that automatically. There's probably some, deep reason for that. But I think that's a constant reminder, but especially this week was a good reminder of that like you really don't know somebody from that. Like until you actually get to know a person, there's so much that you miss out on. And I feel like at so many stages in my life, there have been people that I like didn't like or had a bad like vibe from or whatever, that like my best friend since I was 15, like when we first met each other, we did not like each other. And I think it's so easy to make like snap judgments. And so I think it's so important, and something that I feel like I constantly have to remind myself of, that like I don't want to say you can't judge a book by its cover. That's so cliche, but like you shouldn't always go off your first impression.
Absolutely.
You should always be open to getting to know someone better, because otherwise you probably will end up missing out on a lot of really good people.
That's so true. I agree with you on that. I think girls are definitely more prominent about this, but I feel like a lot of women have friends that are dear, dear friends to them that they can admit that when they first met, they did not like each other.
Yeah.
And I feel like part of that is society, but like you said, also part of that is like some sort of like deep ingrained human trait that we all have to like kind of like put a guard up or be cautious of what maybe we see negatively about ourselves in somebody else like right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I know I'm one of those people who seems like very aggressive and abrasive online sometimes, but then you get to know me and I'm like so sensitive.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so like you're saying, sometimes people have like a persona that is one way because of different things. That is like their guard to who they really are, because they don't want to be vulnerable in that way. So that's definitely such important advice and such a good reminder, I think, for people to just like, it's Tuesday, it's a new week. This is going to come out hopefully later tonight. So people will take this and with their week and go into it. Like now that COVID and people are getting their vaccinations, things are opening up again. People are interacting a lot more with people that they don't know.
Right.
The last year or so has been us surrounded constantly by people that we probably know really, really well and are probably a little sick of.
Right.
And so now that we're like getting back into integrating into society, so to speak, that I think that's a really, really good reminder to just chill out, get to know somebody a little bit past that first wall that they reveal.
Yeah. And I think like for me, I was always friends with guys. My comfort zone has always, my whole life has been with guys. Like I grew up, my best friends growing up for the most part were boys. Like even as a teenager, I always felt more comfortable with my guy friends. I always struggled to make friends with girls. Like that just, for whatever reason, that was always really hard for me. And I think I experienced as a kid like a lot of rejection from other girls, and got teased off and on by other girls, and the guys didn't care. Like it was so easy and whatever. And so I think because of that, there's like a subconscious level where I'm always a little intimidated by women.
Right.
Because I feel like you kind of go back to that place of being a child. And so when I get to know, it's rare that I meet women that I don't like when I actually get to know them. But it's so natural and easy for me to go into a situation with men and like get along easily with them, versus like women it's scary and intimidating. Like if you tell me I have to go work with, a room full of men, I'm not going to feel intimidated. If you tell me I have to go work with a room full of women, I'm going to be intimidated. I'm going to probably end up having a blast, but I'm going to be terrified.
Really nervous. Yes, I so agree with that. That's so true. That's so true. And I think one thing that like being in sports and like knowing that the camaraderie between women in sports exists as it does, I feel like that's something that we can maybe like flip the script on and get it to pour out to other industries. Because I feel like a lot of women would agree with that statement, and it doesn't have to be like that.
Especially when you realize like they feel the same way I do.
Yeah.
Like and so I think just like I always try to like make an effort to just like, hey, hi, you know, smile. And I like, especially because of the stigma of people saying like smile or smile more or whatever, like there's kind of a thing like when men say that to women, there's, you know, connotations there. But I do think that there's something to be said for like when you smile, you're more approachable.
Totally.
So like if you're in a situation, like all it takes, I mean, all it takes with women is like you smile at them and tell them they have cute shoes and you're friends for life. Like
totally.
It doesn't take much. Like it doesn't take much. It's just the letting your guard down and allowing yourself to do that and not like feel like you have to protect yourself from them.
Absolutely. No, that's so true. So true. I fully agree. Hopefully, like I said, we can get that mentality spilling out into other industries and other communities a little bit more. Because I think that the sports, like women in sports and that family, there is so much of like, I even said it about Vic on my 5 Female Friday. Like there's so much reaching back to help out the other woman that's below you. And so many women are giving advice to women that have like an eighth of the platform that they do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
beautiful.
Yeah, like girls like Meg Reyes, Ari Chambers, they are constantly interacting with people on social media that are not even on their level.
Right.
As far as like visibility goes.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool to see and really heartwarming. So I'm glad that you touched on that. So, and I think that leading into this next question, I think I know how you're going to answer based on that.
Okay.
Pick one to be for a day, hero or villain?
Villain. Villain, for sure. Like I grew up always being the kid that followed the rules. Always. Right. And even as an adult, I tend to be, I think I've gone through things in the last several years that have taken me from someone who is very much a people pleaser and made my decisions based primarily on people being happy with me and making like the right decision, you know, so that people wouldn't be upset with me or people would feel like I was making good choices with my life versus like what I actually felt like were good choices for my life or what I actually wanted.
Yeah.
And it took going through some kind of traumatic, life-changing things to get to that point, to be honest.
Right.
And so I think because of that, like, and it was funny because I'm a big fan of really trashy TV. Like I like the stupid like reality, like the I can't even think of a good like the Kardashians. I love the Kardashians. Too. Or like Jersey Shore, like these, like so, and I think that I've been thinking about this a lot lately because somebody asked me like, why do you watch this? Or Vanderpump Rules. I love Vanderpump Rules.
Where else am I going to get my drama?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like it's fascinating to me because that was so far from my life. Like, that was never my life. And so I watch the stuff and I'm just like, what? Like, what is this? And so I think if I was going to be a hero or a villain for a day, it would be a villain. That being said, I would never want to hurt people, so I would be a very unique villain.
I agree with you, especially on the sentiment of like, I love like the mystique and the mysteriousness of the villain. But I also like the idea of a villain actually putting the villainess into the hands of the person making the choice.
Yeah.
You know, because the villain can very much also not be, like you're saying, not necessarily an active villain where you're harming people or changing the course of people's lives, but you're the villain that's like the devil on the shoulder, so to speak. Yeah. Like tempting somebody to choose between right and wrong just to see who they are and what they're made of. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, this sounds terrible. Maybe I should switch my answer. I can't even make it through the question.
But I agree. So I'm with you on that. I definitely I'll play the villain role. Somebody has to.
Right. Where would we be without the villains?
Not everybody can be the hero, so.
It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure to be the hero.
I don't know. I don't feel very heroic a lot of the time. So I feel like villain is more.
It's easier for sure. For sure.
Absolutely. Okay, this one's maybe a little bit easier and less like morally pressing, hopefully. What is your favorite day of the week?
You know, this used to be so much easier to answer when I was working like a regular job with regular hours.
Totally.
But it literally doesn't. The days of the week run together. I don't know that I have like a favorite. A Tuesday because there's tacos. That's the
Okay.
best.
Boom. There it is. Go Tuesday.
Like there's just
LeBron
there's
plays.
yeah like there's no measure of the days anymore, it seems like my Friday is often the same as my Monday and my Tuesday is the same as my Sunday. Like it just, because of the nature of my work, like it's not regular, and so it's all over the board, and so there's not like a I can't yeah so that's literally the only thing I can think of that marks the days is Taco Tuesday. I love
Okay,
tacos.
perfect. There it is. You heard it here first. Dia Miller's favorite day of the week is Taco Tuesday.
When my daughter was first going to school and they were learning the days of the week, she was like, she's going through the days of the week and she's like, Sunday, Monday, Taco Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Like she legit thought that's what it was called. So I call that a major win in my life.
Yeah.
As a parent, and Taco Tuesday is the best.
Yes. I love that. That's so funny. Okay, we're gonna end it on potentially a controversial note. This
Okay.
can be, again, this can be one of those things that's like super minute or it can be like super deep and detailed.
Okay.
What is the worst career advice you've ever received?
Oh man. I don't know if it's a specific piece of advice,
Mm-hmm.
like a specific thing, but the idea of having to stick to one path.
Totally.
Like once you've started, or like you're deep in it, you're successful in what you're doing, you've put the time in, that's your career for life. I have been unhappy in careers more than once and have made more than one change. And I think, I've watched my friends over the years who picked a career path, did it the right way, I should put in quotation,
Right. Yeah.
And hate their job, hate it.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that your job is, and now granted the last year has changed things slightly, but for the most part, your job is where you spend the most of your time. If
So
you're
true.
working a 9 to 5 job, you're going to work from 9 to 5, and then you're coming home and you're eating dinner and you're, watching a show or something and going to bed. Like your life is work. And so to me, I've always said, like, it's more important to do something. I would rather do something I love and live paycheck to paycheck than do something I hate and be the richest person in the world. And so, but I think it's a very common, and I mean, I feel like I've heard so many times over the years, like you need to pick what you're going to do and you need to do it. Like stick with it. And I think that stick with it is not always a bad thing. Like if you're determined to do something and you don't want to give up and it's something you want, then sticking with it is solid advice. But it's not good advice if you're encouraging someone to stay in a career path that they hate.
Absolutely. Well, and I think to your point about doing things the right way, that people get this idea of like, okay, well, I graduated high school and I went immediately into college and I did my 4 years and I declared my major right off the bat. And, maybe I got a minor also while I was there because I took enough courses and so on and so forth. But then they get out and they get into a career that potentially was like a university to career pathway because of an internship or something of some sort. And their job that they wanted at the start of all of it is not the job that they're actually doing.
Yeah.
And so they go into it with this idea of like, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this, but the actual description and the degree in which they hold to get them into that position is not the accurate one for what they want to do.
Right. Or people think that they want to do a job and then they get the job and they hate it. Like,
true.
I mean, you don't really fully know what you're getting into until you get into it. And so you can think that a career looks amazing and get there and just be like, man, I hate this.
Yep. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And I definitely think that, with all the people that I'm considering in our, like, specific to our Blazers community, like you have single moms, you have, middle-aged women that had kids pretty young who now are like empty nesters at like 42 or so. And all of these people who are finding that the internet is so much more of a connecting place than it used to be even 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, we've got Twitch, we've got Clubhouse, we've got TikTok, like all of these different platforms where you can let people into what you're doing in that moment specifically. Instagram Live, Facebook Live is another one, you know what I mean? So I think it's so important to remember that just because you did something and you committed something for a short time doesn't mean that you can't have other interests and passions that you pursue in depth. You know, success isn't linear, you know what I mean? Success is one of those things you have to sometimes, it's like the old putting a football player in ballet classes. You know what I mean? You have to learn other skills to be good at the skills you want to be really, really good at.
Right. So, well, and I think too, like, there's so much pressure because of social media. Like, social media is a beautiful, wonderful thing, but it also is evil. like you get so, like, it's literally a highlight reel. And there's just, I mean, there's no way of getting around that. Like, there's no way of getting around. I think everybody to some degree is going to compare themselves to the people around them. And I think social media makes that so much harder because you're seeing just this you're seeing what people want you to see.
Yeah.
And I mean, how many times do you hear that somebody breaks up and you're like, oh my gosh, but they were so happy. But you have no idea. That's what they put out there, but you don't know. And it's the same thing with so many situations. Like, I remember when I had children, this is kind of going off the topic here, but I remember when I had children, like, Instagram was a new thing. Yeah. And I remember, like, I was a mess. Like, when you have a child, like, your entire life changes. You don't know what the heck you're doing. Suddenly your job is to keep a human alive. You don't know what they're thinking. You don't know, like, it's exhausting. And I would see all these, like, moms on Instagram, and I so desperately wanted connection because I felt so lonely in what I was doing.
Right.
And you would see all these moms on social media that just, their lives look so perfect. And I remember thinking, like, I must be doing this wrong. Like, I must be doing this wrong. And it didn't take long for me to be like, you know what, this is just not who I am. Like, I'm not going to be this person. Like, I'm going to tell you that my day with the kids was a disaster, but man, they're cute, And I think that there's so much wrapped up in social media and the pressures, and that goes back to jobs as well. Like, so people glamorize these jobs that they like. The fact of the matter is, anyone who's ever worked in sports can tell you, like, there's stuff that just sucks. And there's parts of it that are tiring and exhausting. And like, it's a freaking dream. And I'm grateful to do what I do. But there are days where I'm just like, oh my gosh, but I'm not posting that stuff online because, like, first of all, there's not everything needs to go online. Right. But I think it's just so easy to glamorize things. And so people get caught up in that. And so I think sometimes people pick a career path based on what they see other people portraying that to be. Yes. And then when they get there, they're like, well, this isn't what I expected.
Yes, that's so true. And so true in so many other aspects of life, like you said, with the social media thing and all of that, the breakups. There's so many different things, like you said, that people can post to control what people think of them or think of their life or think of their job and what have you, that it doesn't paint the full picture. It doesn't paint the stuff like, yeah, cool, I'm courtside for an NBA game filming all of these different plays to put on social media, but then nobody shows or talks about the 8 hours of editing and the 8 hours of sifting through film and the 8 hours of finding shots that are going to be worthwhile on social media that people are like, oh, that was so sick, instead of like, sweet, why are you showing us this?
Or like, hey, you really missed a big shot. Like, how could you do that? Or whatever. Like, I mean, there's so much that doesn't get talked about. And it shouldn't necessarily. I'm not saying we should be like, hey, I really messed up today at work. Like, but I do think it's important to be realistic and not put out these not over glamorize things that, I think it's important to be real and honest to some degree.
So true. Awesome. Well, that concludes the secret segment. So thanks for all of your time and your opinions. And we will see you over on the main episode 17 of Sports Talk Mostly podcast. Big, sound white boy.
sound right, boy.